Evening. This is the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held July 6, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Council Chambers Building, 826 North Main Street, Cottonwood, Arizona. City Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Wilden?
Here.
Councilmember Henry?
Here.
Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
Councilmember Kurat?
Here.
Councilmember Naren?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hulse?
Here?
And Mayor Linsky is here by phone.
Okay. All right. Would you stand with me and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we have a brief summary of current events by the Mayor, City Council, and/or City Manager. Public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during this summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal actions. Council members, does anybody have?
I have a couple of things real quick. On June 17th, I attended the Nonprofit Coalition meeting. This was the second meeting, and these will be monthly meetings. The third Thursday of every month at 3 p.m. at the Cottonwood Rec Center. I want to put this out as an invitation to all nonprofits serving our most vulnerable citizens in the Verde Valley to please come to these meetings as we're beginning to discuss mission and goals and what we want this to become. And so that's that. Then on June 19th, I did attend the resource fair, and Councilmember Wilden did that with me. We kind of split the time up, so one of us was there at each time. And this was a resource fair for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and it was multiple agencies were there doing things. It was a fundraiser, so they had a fundraiser part outside with the beanbag toss and all that kind of stuff. And then the resource fair was kind of inside and outside, but it was very nicely done, and it was so nice to see some people come out. It wasn't as busy while I was there as I would have liked to have seen for citizens coming out, but we did have some. And then I also attended on July 4th the festivities at the kids park for as long as I could stay in the heat. And the fireworks display from my patio, well, my porch, my whatever you want to call it where I live, because I don't really have a patio or a porch, was wonderful. So thanks to all of you for setting that up.
Anyone else?
Briefly, kudos to the rec center. I sent a friend of mine over there, and she actually called me and said, "Did you call and tell them I was coming?" She said they treated her like royalty. So her name's Tyra, and she's just a great person.
Thank you. Mr. Corbin?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Got a couple today. All she had to do was say it was Councilmember Wilden sent me, and then she was treated wonderfully, I'm sure. A little bit of news and then some updates. The water and wastewater rates were increased per council approval in 2019. Those new rates do go into effect on July 1. Customers will see the increase when they are billed for usage in July on billings that are processed in late July and August. The new rates can be found on our city's website. And then some very exciting news. With the seller property and business in progress, Lori and Dan Maybury, I always get that wrong, sorry, have set up an operator agreement with Ryan Glass and his Prescott-based company to pick up where things left off 16 months ago for Blazing M Ranch over there. They will continue the dinner theater and some items on the menu like the prickly pear coleslaw. This vital destination driver will be back up and running, and we are excited to have this tourism draw back up and running in Cottonwood. Stay tuned for exact dates, but in the next couple of weeks, they will be open for shows. Very, very excited about that. July is National Parks and Recreation Month. As part of our campaign to celebrate, we are doing staff highlights throughout the month on Facebook to introduce the public to our staff and what each of our backgrounds bring. Also, I wanted to announce that on July 31st, we're going to have a community build. So council allocated funds to add a playground almost 2 years ago now, but we're through that process. And so we're adding a playground over at Kids Park where we did the 4th of July celebrations. There'll be a big playground out there. The professionals are installing it, and then we've invited the community to come in and help finish it, to help put down some of the sawdust and put in some posts and do some different things that the community can help with us. The community, remember, helped pick the colors and do some other things. They picked the actual structure out of a different choices they had. So the community's been involved the entire time, but stay tuned for more details, but that is looking like July 31st for the community build. And then Manzanita Outreach is offering MO Packs for kids. The MO Packs for kids provides nutritious, pre-made meals, snacks, and books. Any child or young adult under 19 years old is eligible, including multiple children per family. Pre-register at mopacks.org or at any pickup location. Starting in July, MO Packs are distributed on the first and third Saturdays at the following locations and times. Verde Valley Christian, which is at 406 South 6 Willard Street in Cottonwood from 10 to 11, and our Shepherd Lutheran at 1090 South Page Springs Road in Cornville from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Corbin. And next is presentations, and tonight we have Patty BELL-DEMERS of United Way.
Mr. Vice Mayor and Mr. Mayor and City Council, let me introduce I'm Ryan Bigelow. I'm the Library Director. I'm here to introduce Miss Patty BELL-DEMERS. She's the Executive Director of the United Way of Yavapai County. Recently, we worked with Patty and the United Way on several projects, the Community Resource Fair, as Councilmember Nair introduced, and also she's been an active participant in the newly formed Coalition for Nonprofits, so she's been involved in that as well. And as you can see on the agenda, the library will be offering a very modest space for her and the United Way of Yavapai County to assist with a more physical presence for them in the Verde Valley. So to tell you more about the United Way and what they're going to do here in the Verde Valley, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director, Ms. Patty BELL-DEMERS.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you so much. And it is an honor and privilege to serve the Verde Valley as well as all of Yavapai County. I am Executive Director, not quite a year yet, but it's quite exciting. And many of you may or may not know about United Way. We've been here since 1987, more of a funding nonprofits. Manzanita Outreach, Verde Valley Homeless Coalition, amongst others. So I just want to have a quick little slideshow, give you a little update about United Way. And again, obviously, we work together in a common purpose, and obviously we live united. And we've been here quite a bit, and we're pretty excited about what we're doing. They're building a volunteer force, what have you. So you're going to see that a lot more, and hopefully we can have that presence and get a lot of these community organizations and small businesses over to the library. See if I did that right. Okay. Also, emergency relief funding in 2020 due to COVID. And we were able to round up $16,000 and provide 52 hotspots during COVID for a lot of the communities throughout Yavapai, and many of them were here in the schools as well. And then hopefully we can get some more over to the library as well. Let's see, oh, here we go, veterans. We are really excited to providing some more support. I'm not sure how this works. Do I answer questions or do I just bow out gracefully and say, thank you? I don't know, curtsy?
Council, are there any questions?
Are you able to provide a comprehensive list of everything you support within Yavapai County?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Not by the end of the day. Okay. Okay. I'll be happy
You can get
to.
that to Ryan, and then Ryan will get it to us.
Fabulous. Thank you. How far back would you like me to go? Maybe since 2017?
That's fine, yes.
Okay. And these are the nonprofits that we have funded throughout our annual grant cycle and
Sure.
some of the
Yeah,
other
within
outreach and
within
education.
Yavapai County, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Mrs. BELL-DEMERS.
Thank you.
Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
All right, next we have call to the public. Is there anyone who wanted to address the council this evening? There are yellow slips back in the left-hand corner by the doors if you wanted to speak. I haven't received any, so I will assume nobody is wanting to present. So we will move on. Approval of the minutes for work session of June 8, 2021 and the regular meeting of June 15, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes of 6/8/21 and 6/15/21.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Next is the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine, non-controversial by the council, and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests. In each case, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. There are 7 items on the consent agenda this evening. First one is the approval of the cooperative use of the City of Goodyear's contract with the Corps and Maine LP for the purchase and installation of new automated water meters and associated telemetry equipment. Number 2 is resolution number 3102, appointing Richard Pierce, a member of the Board of Adjustment. Number 3 is the renewal of a lease agreement with Sandy Brown Seeds Natural Fiber Clothing for the Old Town Jail building. Number 4 is a liquor license application submitted by John Rachel owner or agent for D.A. Vines Vineyard LLC for a remote tasting room located at 705 North Main Street, Suite A. Number 5 is authorizing the submission of a grant application to the State Historic Preservation Office for a 2021 Certified Local Government Historic Preservation Pass-Through Grant. Number 6 is an agreement with United Way of Yavapai County for the use of a room at the Cottonwood Public Library. And number 7 is a special event liquor license application submitted by Christian Olivia Del Rio, applicant for the Cottonwood Chamber of Commerce for a chamber mixer scheduled for July 15, 2021 at the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse located at 805 North Main Street. Council, is there any item that we need to discuss? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to discuss any of these items? Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Council Member Henry and seconded by Council Member Karat, is that right? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Sorry about that, Mayor. All right. City Clerk, would you read resolution number 3102 by title only?
Resolution number 3102, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona, appointing Richard Pierce a member of the Board of Adjustment and establishing his term of office. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. First item on the agenda is a presentation, discussion, and direction to staff regarding proposed revisions to the city's employee manual.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amanda Wilbur, HR Director. And tonight I'm here to talk about some proposed changes to our employee manual. So our employee manual really hasn't been updated. Our leadership team has seen it. They shared with their staff, brought back any staff concerns that may have been out there. Our personnel board has reviewed and given comments back. Our own city attorney and city manager have reviewed these policies, and an outside firm specializing in employment law has also looked over these. So we've had lots of feedback throughout this process to get to this point so far. So with that, we will look at all three sections separately. First section here repeals about 10 of our current sections. It updates our general employment laws, things that the city already follows that we have to have in place, like our equal employment opportunity policies, anti-harassment, anti-retaliation, Americans with Disability Act, things that we already follow on a regular basis. It also clarifies some of our ethics expectations for our employees. Of course, all of our employees want to be ethical for the most part, but we definitely want to make things clear for them so there is no question on where the line really is. So specifically in those areas, we've had some questions or concerns about gifting, use of public property, and political activities, things like that that aren't always clear or are different for public employees than they are for private sector employees. So some of those things are clarified in this section here. This section also establishes a pretty clear whistleblower policy. Even though that's been the city's expectations for a long time, it hasn't been spelled out as clearly as we think it is now in this policy. So we're hoping that that will help employees really have a very clear path on how to report unethical behavior that either is happening or they think might be happening, and what that procedure looks like. And then finally, one specific new item in this section is adding administrative regulations. So not every city and town does this, but several do. And it's just a way to kind of supplement from the city manager's office the policies that council approves already. So it's meant to be clarifying procedures and things that guide employees on how to follow the policies that council's really setting. So that is our summary of section 1. So I'll pause for a minute and see if council has any questions on that particular section.
Okay, don't think there are any questions.
Okay. So the next section here would be the new proposed section 6 in our new format. And it focuses on compensated time and leave. So again, like in the first section, there is a lot of regulatory language in there, general FLSA information, clarifying of our current policies, things like what is our work week, that we compensate employees in 15-minute increments, you can't work off the clock when you are employed by us, our overtime policy, compensatory time, things like that are generally covered by FLSA that we are required to follow already. We did update the on-call and standby pay policy though. Right now, our policy is that employees get $1 per hour for the hours that they are not regularly scheduled. So for example, if an employee is scheduled for 8 hours a day, they would get $16 of on-call pay, regardless of whether or not they're coming in to perform any work. So this new policy would change that to $2 per hour, and the $2 per hour would only apply to the hours that they aren't actually working. So that is a little bit different in this new proposal as compared to the old or current policy.
Amanda, I think you may have misstated. Kirsten and I are making eye contact on the current policy.
You currently just pay a flat amount, $16 for a weekday that you're on call, and $24 for weekends and holidays. Doesn't matter what hours they work or anything. It's just a flat dollar value. Just wanted to clarify.
Misspoke. Equated to $16. Yes. Sorry about that. Acting pay for the fire department, that's something that we've been doing but hasn't necessarily been put into our written policy, so that is put into our written policy. Sorry, this is really small writing. Hopefully you can follow. Our holiday pay section here, we did include Juneteenth, which, as you probably know, is a newly recognized federal holiday. But if council does not want that to be included, we can take that out, no problem. One other change with the holiday pay is that currently part-time employees do not have any sort of holiday compensation, whereas under this new policy they would under certain circumstances. So That is a change as well. And then we also updated the travel and training compensation for clarity. Again, we already follow that as it's outlined by FLSA, but we want it to be clear for employees and make it easy for employees to know exactly where we stand and where to find that information. For sick time, none of our accruals really changed, but after the Healthy Arizona Families Act was enacted, we did not come back to council and actually change the written policy. That needs to be done, so that's integrated into this policy here. It also clarifies how we treat the transition between full-time and part-time to full-time in regards to sick hours as well, since that was not applicable to us before the law was enacted. We also updated our workers' compensation leave. One of the major differences, besides just updating for the law again, is that we would like to run FMLA leave and workers' compensation leave concurrently. The law says we're allowed to do that, but we have not currently been doing that. That hasn't been our practice, and we feel like that is a better practice for the city to do that at the same time rather than not. So that is a difference there too. A reserve medical leave bank is being proposed. That is something that's new, and it would only be created from any hours that would normally be lost for vacation accrual if someone hits the maximum amount of vacation leave in their bank. So this won't necessarily apply to everyone because not everyone lets their vacation get to the maximum amount. But if it did, instead of losing it, it would be rolled over into this bank, and employees would be able to use this leave only if they've exhausted all of their sick leave. So it's really geared towards helping employees when they need it most, when they're sick. Military leave, we updated that to comply with the law as well, and hopefully just made that a little clearer for employees so they understand what their rights are under the military leave laws. So this slide you actually saw before when we did the compensation study discussion. This is what came back with the market study. So we discussed then that we were below market in all of our categories across the board. And we used this information then to propose some new changes in our policy that we're looking at tonight. Basically, with these changes, it would be adding 2 days per year of vacation to employees. And also an additional tier. So right now we only have up to 5 years and over 5 years as the two categories of accruals. So this would be up to 5 years, between 5 and 14 years, and then 15 or above years. So it just adds that extra tier there. All the fire department numbers there are applied by a multiplier of 1.4. That's consistent with what we do with our sick leave and with the hours, the extra hours that they work compared to regular employees. So that is consistent across the board. And then the maximum limit pretty much stays the same with the exception of firefighters. But again, that multiplier is still applied there. We do have a few things that are not specifically mentioned in the PowerPoint here because there aren't very many real changes in those sections, but it's important to note still that we have them. So we do still have a leave of absence policy, voting leave, jury leave, leave for court appearance, and crime victim leave. But those are pretty much just carryovers from our current policy. We did propose some change to the administrative leave policy. So currently, non-exempt employees have 20 hours per calendar year, and our policy says that exempt employees have 40 hours per calendar year. But exempt employees don't really need it. So what we've done is clarified the purpose of the leave to show why exempt employees don't really need it, and reduce the non-exempt hours from 20 to 16. So the point of that type of leave is to use it for purposes that can't be done outside of normal work hours. So like if you have to make an appointment with your bank that's only open when you're working, you could take admin leave for that time. And we feel like the reduction of 4 hours is not very significant, and the purpose is for small things like that. People shouldn't really be taking whole days at a time. It's not extra vacation leave or extra sick leave. So we felt like the change there would be appropriate. Family medical leave, again, that is just updates for the law there. Bereavement leave, we did have a couple changes there. So our current policy says that you can have 3 days if you are going someplace in state for bereavement purposes, and 5 days out of state. So the change would be just to make it 5 days across the board, make it consistent for everyone. And then we did take off aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews from the immediate family list. That doesn't mean someone couldn't still leave, but they would just use a different type of accrued leave for that purpose. We are proposing to implement inclement weather leave. We don't currently have that in our policy, but as probably some of you remember, we kind of needed it a few years ago. So this will clarify what to do in those circumstances. And it does have a provision in there for part-time as well. So we know how to apply that leave to part-time employees. Our leave sharing program has been approved previously. There are not really changes to that. And then our last proposed implemented leave is volunteer leave. And we're hoping that that will encourage volunteerism with our employees throughout the community. So that is something new where the city would match some of that time. With that, are there any questions about this particular section?
Just a couple of clarifying things. We may have been talking HR language, so I was following you on a couple of things. So I just want to clarify. When we say exempt versus non-exempt, we're talking about salaried employees like myself and Amanda versus hourly employees who get paid by the hour. For example, one of the biggest differences, you don't do partial day deductions for salaried employees. So if I step away from my desk for 30 minutes, there's not normally a deduction of 30 minutes. An hourly employee is paid by the hour. They're not allowed to donate time. If they work off the clock, after hours, they have to get paid for it. So that's the biggest difference there. And then full-time or 40 hours employees with full benefits, including insurance, retirement, and all of those kinds of things. And then we have a couple different levels of part-time employees. We have some part-time employees that get retirement benefits, but not medical benefits because they work 29 hours. And then we have some part-time employees who don't get either, and they work 19 hours a week.
Yes, or less.
So you're exempt?
I'm exempt. So feel free to, give extra. No. It was at the HR.
Sorry. No other questions for section 6 there? Okay. So section 8 here is focused on corrective action. So I do want to mention that there is one specific section. It's 3C2 that we do have to make one change based on attorney feedback. So it says that a demotion without a reduction in pay is not appealable, but it actually should be appealable. So we will make that change in the policy, but I wanted to point that out to you all because it's not correct in there as it is currently worded. One of the major changes in this section on corrective action is the process that we plan to follow and who has the authority to impose discipline. So currently our process is that the city manager is the only employee or person able to really impose discipline that is appealable. Then, if an employee does not agree with that, they can appeal to the personnel board, and the personnel board has the final say, the final decision in the matter. So under our new process that we're proposing, the department head would actually be able to make the decision on imposing discipline. The employee would be able to appeal to the personnel board, and then the personnel board would make a recommendation to the city manager, who would then make the final decision. So part of that is because the city manager is still able to be held accountable for his decisions by council, and that is better practice for the city in general. If the personnel board makes a decision that even council doesn't agree with, there isn't really any other recourse. So luckily, the personnel boards that we have had have been pretty good, and we haven't had this problem, but it's not necessarily the best practice for the city to continue down that path. So we are recommending that we make that process change there. In this policy section here, we are also giving all of our employees the same rights. So some cities and towns have actually two different processes. One process for regular employees and one process for police officers. And that's basically based on statutory rights that police officers have within the state statutes. So instead of having two separate processes, we are proposing that all of our employees have the greater benefit of following basically the Peace Officer Bill of Rights there. So that is aligned in there.
Hello, this is Ken Zielinski. I'm not available.
And then this also brings some clarity to our appeal process. Our current appeal process is pretty vague in our current policy, and we want employees to have a good understanding of what the process looks like and want the personnel board to know what that looks like as well. So that brings some clarity there as well. And then one thing that is not in this policy, that is in the current policy, is a list of at-will employees that serve at the pleasure of the city manager. And the intent there is that that type of thing would fall under the administrative regulations. So as long as council is on board with that, that list specifically, as well as other processes, would fall under the administrative regulations there. So that is a difference there as well. Before we finish up, are there any questions on this particular section?
Doesn't appear that there are.
Okay. So the last thing I wanted to go over is our timeline. So obviously tonight we're talking about the proposed changes, but anytime we change our employee manual, it has to be done by ordinance. So next council meeting would be the reading of the first reading of the ordinance, and I probably won't be here then. So it will be Ron and Steve and Kirsten that will be kind of leading that up. So any changes that council wishes to make tonight, I'll work on those and line that up for council. But the first reading would be on July 20th then. The second reading hopefully would be August 3rd. And as long as council moves to move forward with that, the new policy would be able to be implemented on September 2nd. Anything that affected payroll would then start the next pay period, which is September 12th. So that means all the accrual rates, the on-call pay, anything like that that affected payroll would start on September 12th and would be reflected on the October 1st paycheck for employees. So with that, I will be available for any questions or comments or direction.
2 questions. First one, with these changes, will this bring us all up to date per law?
At least in these particular sections. So my goal is to actually completely get rid of our old manual and have this newly formatted manual that is completely compliant, but it's not all there yet.
And second question is there anything that pertains to council in any of these changes?
Not in these particular changes.
Any other questions? Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Thank you, Amber.
thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a public
But
hearing.
Vice Mayor, no, I don't have any questions for Amanda, but are we able to discuss some of the proposed revisions?
Certainly.
I think you did a very nice job, Ms. Wilbur, of the revisions. This is a monumental, I mean, this is a lot of work, and it clearly reflects that a lot of time, thought, and analysis was put into the revisions. I think they look good. I'm fine with some of the additions, such as Juneteenth. My only concern, and I did want to see if any other council members had any thoughts, is what I think is an important change with the personnel board and how we're now having the city, or the proposed change is to have the city manager have the final say. It's my understanding that the personnel board is actually, several of the members are elected by city employees. Is that correct?
Yes, so our personnel board is made up of 5 members. 3 of them are employees that the employee body elects, and then 2 are citizens that are brought through the board and commission process.
So the proposed change would change the final decision maker from the board if there were an appeal, and make the board advisory only. So is that correct?
Correct, yep, they would make the recommendation. They'd have to put in writing why any differences from what was originally proposed is being recommended to the city manager, and then the city manager would have the final say. And if he or she at the time, who knows, made a different decision, then their task would be to justify that and put that in writing as well, in case it went beyond city processes.
So personally, I like having the multi-member board, especially with representation from, elected members by the city employees. And it's nothing against I trust our current city manager's judgment, but I just think that in the true spirit of an appeal process, having a multi-member, many sets of eyes on the situation, the ability by many members to ask questions and have a hearing, and have that be binding, I think is a pretty important tool. In the legal profession, when we have an appeal, we always stress the opportunity to provide notice of the allegations or whatever, and then also the opportunity to be heard. And here again, with that multi-member, I think it provides that process. But I do want to say, I'm just one member, so I just want to see what the rest of council, or how they feel about that proposed change. Thanks.
Mr. Vice Mayor, can I make a couple comments? One of the reasons, Councilmember Henry, we're making this is I think, makes for a less messy process. So right now, the city manager is involved from the get-go early on, and doesn't really call for a hearing. There's a meeting that happens and some of the evidence. And then later on at the meeting of the personnel board is a real hearing. And I think a lot of things could be avoided or clarified if the hearing process is earlier in the process. So one of the things that this really does is it makes the directors accountable for their departments and their personnel. They make the recommendations on discipline, and they issue the discipline findings. And then that's appealable to the board, the personnel board, where there's a true hearing, where there's attorneys involved if they wish, where they present evidence in front of the board, and the board actually can have an attorney, and it's a very clean process. And then under this policy, they would be required to make a decision and then list their findings. And then, yes, I would have the authority to agree or disagree, and then I would have to list my reasons for agreeing or disagreeing. And one of the reasons that's important is state statute doesn't allow carte blanche authority to a city manager when it comes to public safety officers. So I'm not allowed to overturn, if this is the process we follow, a decision specifically on a sworn officer for an unjustified reason. And so the state statute kind of creates a system that protects it to make sure decisions are sound and made on good decisions and for good reasons. Having lived through one appeal process that this went through, at another organization, the process works, and the justification is a lot clearer, and I think the process is a lot cleaner this way. Again, you're absolutely right. It does move the board process earlier in versus having the final say, but it still doesn't give carte blanche authority to the city manager, whoever he or she may be. They still have to. They can only change the decision for a couple specific reasons. So it doesn't provide the at-will status that some might think it does.
Well, can you clarify that? Because I think it says it's just a recommendation, so it's an advisory recommendation, and then you can agree or disagree, you just have to list the reasons. I didn't see any criteria for the agreement or the disagreement.
It's in a state statute, and I don't have that in front of me, and I believe maybe Steve can remember, but it can't be arbitrary or capricious, and it has to be with reasons found. There has to be identifiable reasons, and I don't remember the statute right now.
For sworn officers, the standard is just cause, and then on review as an appeal or special action to Superior Court, the standard would be that the final decision of the city was arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable.
But that's irregardless.
Yes, absolutely right.
What would happen if the board, personnel board, says one thing and you disagree with that? Do they have another appeal, or what could happen after that?
No, that would be the end. Just kind of like it is right now with the personnel board, which is made up of city employees deciding the fate of other city employees. Their decision is final, and for the city side, it's final.
Right? Could there be a lawsuit?
Yes, absolutely, and that's how I've seen it happen before. When the next disagreement, so you have the decision, appeal hearing, and then another decision, and then after that it goes to Superior Court.
The personnel board hearing can be a considerable time and expense, and to me, the fact that we're going to pivot and dogleg back after that much time and expense and potential attorney involvement, and then have a non-appealable, basically a recommendation, and then a non-appealable decision by somebody without a hearing, to me, is robbing our employees of due process and deterring employees from even going through the personnel board process, because again, it is expensive, and at the end of the day, it's not binding. So, again, I just have concerns about this potential change.
And it really is up to council to give us direction on what they want to approve, because the employee manual is really policy set by city council.
Okay.
For whatever it's worth, it's been a number of years since I did a survey of other jurisdictions, and there seemed to be a split between the order in which the hearing and the final decision, who was the final decision maker, whether it was the manager or a board.
Yeah, this is not a unique process.
Any other comments from council?
I don't know, I kind of see this as the city manager getting the benefit of that personnel board meeting and being able to present that evidence and listen to the arguments on both sides before making his decision. And based on all that evidence and the personnel board making a recommendation on that, I think the city manager would be under the gun to make, to justify any opposing decision. So I mean, I kind of see the flow of this as being, in my opinion, just a little bit better decision-making process for the city manager in the end.
And I'm just going to say that I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other, but what's been presented makes sense, and what Councilmember Henry is saying also makes sense, so I'm kind of on the fence here.
Mr. Vice Mayor, if I can ask Amanda, did the Personnel Board comment on this rule?
They did discuss, so it's not the current Personnel Board that saw this version, because this has been ready for like over a year in this particular section, but as a whole, Personnel Board was ready to go with this version when it went to them.
Okay. So for clarification, with the new process, an individual would be reprimanded, appeal it to the Personnel Board. Personnel Board would hear the case, make a decision. That would then go to the city manager. The city manager would then review, pardon me, would then review the Personnel Board's recommendations, but would still have the authority to override the Personnel Board.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor.
But according to what you said, that would be with limited circumstances.
I believe it would be.
Okay.
Just for clarification, if you can confirm, because I'm just, right now, the council rep to the Personnel Board, is when this does go to the Personnel Board, it's not one of their regular meetings and they sit in there and they make a decision. Mm-hmm. It is a courtroom setting with the same thing, evidence presented, attorneys involved if the party so desires. So it's quite a formal process. It's not just the Personnel Board sitting down, hammering it out amongst themselves and coming up with a decision. So.
If there are limited criteria, I do think those limitations should be included in the policy at a minimum.
We can add that.
That would be more satisfactory.
I think it's going to be satisfactory depending on how it plays out. We have current personalities in the position. We don't know what personalities are going to be in the position and what concerns might arise later,
Right,
but that will
right.
be for a different council to determine.
Right, I understand. Okay. All right, any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wilbur.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Next on the agenda is resolution number 3103, approving the city's financial budget.
Actually, first up is the public hearing on the final budget for fiscal year 21
You're
and
right.
22. So at this time, as part of the budget process, we have to open the floor to allow public comment on the budget. So that's what we'll do now, if anybody would like to make a comment.
Okay, I guess we can proceed then.
I have a question.
You have a question? Okay.
So I'm just curious, I always am every year. How many of the public was Rudy able to round up during any of the invites and public presentations?
We did present to 2 groups. I wasn't there for the second one that you did. I got stuck in Seattle. But we presented to one group of the Rotary, and then we did a town hall. And the Rotary was 5 people, and the town hall, I think 2 people. Tosca.
That might include Councilmember Henry, and Jason was the other one.
Yeah. Paper and one other person.
I think that was well attended compared to many
Yeah.
other
It was more than.
It was 3 more than last year, or 2 years ago.
And I will say that I do plan on going to the chamber mixer on the 15th and being there to answer any questions about budget and kind of having a presence, so if anybody wants to ask anything.
And Mr. Vice Mayor, we also had the Crestview HOA, and that was low attendance, 6 or 7, maybe 8. I can't remember the exact number, but great questions. They were on fire. They were involved, educated, and had a lot of great questions about the budget. So kudos over there to Ms. Smiley, and I'm sorry, that was Councilmember Weldon. It was the best, probably, budget meeting we've had since I've been on board as far as public discussion.
Sorry, I missed it.
Okay. So, moving then to, what is it? Fiscal resolution number 3103, approving the city's financial budget for fiscal year 2021-22. Is that correct?
Yes. Good evening, since I didn't say that earlier. I'm Kirsten Lennon, the Financial Services Director, and this is the adoption of the final adoption of the 21-22 budget by resolution with an expenditure limitation of $120,593,060. There have been no changes since the tentative presentation. It's the same budget. There were changes between the proposed and the tentative budget that I think Rudy went over. I can go over those again if you'd like. If not, it's all in the packet. It is a balanced budget. We did get the funding for the public safety retirement done in the 21 budget, so we won't be using that in the 22 budget, but it's still in the budget.
Okay. Any questions from the council? No? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion, as long as you don't spend it all in one place. I move to approve resolution number 3103, adopting the city's proposed fiscal year 2022 final budget as presented, and to establish the city's fiscal year 2022 final expenditure limitation at $120,593,060.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Michaels made the motion. Councilmember Weldon seconded it. Would you take a roll call vote, please, Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Clorot,
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews,
Yes.
Councilmember Naren,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hulse,
Yes?
Mayor Linsky,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Okay. Very good.
Read the resolution.
You want to read it, please?
Resolution number 3103, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, adopting the final budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 and establishing an expenditure limitation. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is a request from Verde Valley Homeless Coalition.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hulse.
Yes, sir.
I'm Jim Padgett, Community Development Planner. This is a request from the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition for a waiver of some fees. They currently operate the daytime drop-in center, cold weather shelter, and some limited transitional housing at their current location. They're looking at acquiring the adjacent property. As part of that, Code Review Board is the first staff review that would be seen by the staff, and then a conditional use permit by the Planning Commission. Those two fees respectively are $100 and $800, so a total of $900 is what this fee waiver request is for as they move forward in looking at the expansion of their operation to the adjacent property.
Okay.
Carol Quazula with the Homeless Coalition is here also, if you have any questions of myself or for her.
Is there a precedent that's been set for this?
We have in the past waived some fees. There was $800 on, and I think those are listed in there. $800 December of 2019, $275 in August of 20, and $1,085 earlier this year in February for different building permit and planning application fees.
What I meant is for other nonprofits or other organizations or businesses.
Yes, both with the Homeless Coalition, and there have been other nonprofits that have requested. If they are a 501c3, they can request that. And in this case, the Homeless Coalition and a couple of time-sensitive issues have gone ahead and paid their own fees. So it just sort of depends, I believe, on the organization.
Mr. Vice Mayor, also, private citizens can ask also. A year ago or so, we had a private citizen that asked for a waiver and for a fence permit that we granted under certain circumstances. So it's not been unusual for council to waive these kinds of fees, not the big ones, not the, the other ones for development, but these are not uncommon.
Do we have any direct cost in this other than staff time, or like are we bringing in somebody outside to do a survey or whatever it is they do?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Crotton, no.
I have a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition's request to waive the Code Review Board fee of $100 and the conditional use permit fee of $800.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilmember Weldon, seconded by Councilmember Henry. Would you take a roll call count, please?
Councilmember Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Clurat?
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews?
Yes.
Councilmember Naren?
Yes.
Councilmember Weldon?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Halls?
Yes.
Mayor Alinsky?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Would you read, no, we don't have a resolution to read, so, okay, good. Next item on the agenda will be the award of a bid and approval of a contract for the Mingus Avenue 8th Street to Main Street project to Pavco Incorporated in the amount of $690,638.43.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Council. My name is David Hausman. I'm the Public Works Manager for the City of Cottonwood. Tonight I'm here to present the approval for the low bid on Mingus Avenue between 8th and Main Street. A couple of things I'd like to highlight with this project that we're kind of doing in this project, and I felt like it was important to kind of know, what are we spending our money on? What is this project going to look like? It'll be the same look with the 11-foot travel lanes. We'll have a 12-foot center turn lane, and bike lanes will be added. We'll have 4 to 4.5 foot bike lanes along this project. With the addition of that, we'll be constructing over 5,000 linear feet of curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Sidewalks are 6 foot in length, or I'm sorry, 6 foot in width, and with that, all the ramps will be brought up to ADA standards. So some other exciting features that we'll have along this corridor. We'll be installing 2 RRFBs, which are what we call the Illuminated Crosswalks. We currently have one near the school on Mingus Avenue. The 2 will be located both on the west side of both 12th Street and 10th Street. So 12th Street being one of our major arterial roads, as well as 10th Street leading to Riverfront Park sees a lot of pedestrian access. So those will be illuminated to where a lot of children, coming from the school, coming down to the neighborhoods on 10th Street, those sort of things will be able to safely cross a busy intersection. I will note that currently Mingus Avenue carries about 6,000 vehicles a day. So quite a large vehicle carrier as an arterial street here in Cottonwood. Another exciting feature that we'll be adding with this project is another bus bay on the south side of Mingus. That'll be near 10th Street, and that's just right across from the bus bay that was previously built by the Circle K construction. So it'll be a bus pull-out. What that does is it gets buses off the road, and then we don't congest that intersection. So what used to happen is we used to have the bus stops. We're right there at that intersection, and we just start backing up traffic. So we're able to actually put a bus turnout bay to alleviate any traffic backup at that bus stop in that location. One of the biggest things that we're going to be doing with this project is eliminating a lot of the drainage. Currently, many portions of this area doesn't have curb, gutter, sidewalk. Drainage goes into private properties. It comes down, heads down towards Main Street. With this project, we'll be taking a lot of the local drainage off of 11th Street. There's a low water crossing on 11th Street. We'll be taking that local drainage and actually installing 800 linear feet of 57-inch culvert all the way to Railroad Wash. And if those of you who don't know where Railroad Wash is, it's right by 10th Street. It's that big wash that kind of cuts underneath Mingus Avenue and then right next to the 10th Street corridor. Some other drainage improvements will be from 12th Street to 15th Street. We'll have about a 10-foot wide drainage channel that'll carry off-street drainage as well as local drainage. That'll go all the way down towards 15th Street, and then that gets put into a culvert and goes underneath Main Street there and discharges beyond that point. One of the things that I wanted to kind of make council aware of is with these construction activities, we do expect closures on Mingus Avenue. Installing a 57-inch culvert in a travel lane will cause us to have some road closures. We will work closely with the contractors and give as much notice to the public as well as the surrounding businesses and the surrounding homes, as much notice as we can about those closures. We'll put it out on our Facebook site. We'll put it in PSAs or, hand deliver them to residents, those sort of things, to make them aware of what's going on in their neighborhood. Lastly, I want to talk about the completion time, and I know this has been a project that's been on the council's radar for a long time. Staff actually plans to issue an NTP in August. What we'll have is a 120-day project, which is about 4 months to substantial completion, with another 30 days to substantial completion. So what that means is it's 120 days for about 4 months to get everything completely done. All the large items, the culverts, the drainage systems installed, the curb, gutter, and sidewalk, the roadways in. Those remaining 30 days will be put for any of the touch-up stuff. Maybe some striping, some signage, some landscape items, and those sort of things. Let's see. So with that, staff sent out the IFB on April 27th. It was published in our local paper on Sunday, May 2nd and Sunday, May 9th. We had bids due back June 15th. We received a total of 4 bids ranging from $2.7 million to $4.5 million. Pavco Contracting was the lowest responsible bidder on the project, and staff is recommending award of that contract. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How far out do we go for bids? It's my understanding that the low came in much higher than the estimate. Is that correct?
You are correct.
And how far out can we go, or do we go? Is it just locals or what?
No, so our contracts and purchasing manager, Jeff Cook, actually publishes it to a bunch of plan rooms. So contractors who are holders of plan rooms get those. I want to say we had close to 57 parties that we'll get the plan holders list, and we had close to 57 companies take a look at those plans and determine on whether or not they wanted to bid on the project.
Do locals get any preference or not?
They do not. It's an open bid process, and it's a low bid process. So.
Two things. One, can we put in stop signs on Mingus and 12th while we got there it all ripped apart? Maybe red crossing signs instead of yellow ones?
Yeah.
Throwing that out there.
You know, we have looked at those on those RFPs. What they do is we put the crosswalk yield signs up. So once it's illuminated, obviously you're supposed to yield in there. You know, looking through the standards, because I know we had talked about this on the Main Street one. It's not standard to put stop signs at them. So it's not the standard. The current MUTCD standards doesn't allow us to do that.
We can't just make it a four-way stop in general?
I believe, and you know, I know this was taken, so when we initially designed this project, it was taken, that 12th Street intersection was taken to council for a couple of different things in the design process. One was a four-way stop, one was a roundabout. There was discussions at that time, and options were presented to council, and the intersection was left based upon the council at that time.
And one other question, while we have the street ripped up, are we checking all the water lines and sewer lines and marking where they actually are?
So, good question.
Well, that was an issue last time.
Yeah, no, good question. So the water lines have already been, constructed and as-built. So there will be some small items within this bid process for the water line. There's some hydrant relocates, some service relocates, things like that. But we do have current as-built on all of our water and sewer lines through there.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I did appreciate the bid comparison document. That was a really useful tool, and it was interesting how far apart a lot of the companies were on the line items. But I don't remember seeing that in that great detail before, and I thought that was helpful. So thank you.
And if council desires, we can do that for all of our projects. It's something we typically do on all of our projects, but with the spread from the 2.7 to the 4.5, I thought it was important for council to kind of see where those numbers are coming from and kind of which contractors, and you guys can take a look at it and base upon, you know, what that range was with any given itemized bids within the bid schedule.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hausman. Any other questions? All right.
Actually, I have one more thing.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about the price and where that comes from. That's one thing I forgot. I am very sorry. So the price, you know, so what we had budgeted in the 2015 bonds, and it was about $1.5 million. Within this year's capital plan, we added another $500,000 out of our capital funds to fund this project. Not knowing that it was going to be so much over what we had originally anticipated. Talking with Kirsten, we do have funds within the council reserves to budget or to fund that additional $600-something thousand out of there. But I did want to talk about that.
Clarify that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Am I correct, Kirsten, on that?
Well, one thing's for sure, if we don't do this, they're going to start patching potholes with council members.
How much should be left in our reserves? The council reserves, not the city's reserves.
If you recall, we had about 4.9 million in the undesignated reserves, so it'll come out of those funds. So your actual reserves, the ones that we set aside, the 25%, will still be at that 25%. So you'll have about 4.3.
So the council undesignated reserves is the 4.9? Yes, million, okay.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, Councilmember, we're not touching the designated reserves at 25%.
No, I didn't think that was the case. I just was curious what the numbers would look like, because this is a large. So do we have any options? Is staff recommending that we move forward, or is there a rebid process, or is there something that maybe can be cut from the plans, or what is staff's thoughts on this?
So staff is recommending the project as is. You know, looking at the project, there's nothing we can cut out of it. Having sidewalks on both sides of the road. We have approximately 2,500 feet of linear road. Both north and south half. Quite a big money ticket item in the bid schedule that you'll see. Another one, in a lot of the things is I think most improvement projects, road improvement projects that we do, we don't do a lot of drainage, like underground drainage systems, like larger CMP pipes and those sort of things to carry large amounts of water. With this project, that 57-inch culvert that's going from 11th Street to Railroad Wash is a substantial line item in that bid. But in order to get the drainage in that local area taken care of, it's kind of a necessity that staff sees to do with this project. If we were not to do that and do it at a later time, we'd be ripping up a brand new road in order to do that. So.
And I don't want to do that, and I do agree. I like the drainage aspect. I just wasn't sure if there was something else, a rock, a tree that we could remove. So nothing like the drainage aspect, though, something more cosmetic.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Henry, one of the things that David worked on was we didn't pay for any right-of-way, so we've already saved some project money. We had a couple holdouts, maybe one, holdouts for right-of-ways, so we redesigned and worked around those. We worked with all of the utilities, APS, and to get everything free so far that we can do. So they've done what they could do to reduce costs in-house and to redesign to not have to purchase extra, but this is just the going price right now, unfortunately, and I would be afraid. I believe prices are plateauing, but I don't know that they're going to start being reduced anytime soon.
And I appreciate that. I'm not interested in delaying the project. Just wanted to make sure that I just was looking for some information from staff, and I do appreciate all the work that staff did to get the free rights of way and other items. So no, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
I have one quick question. I know in the past this has been a problem, especially with some of the larger projects, that we accept a low bid and then there's additional charges later that we can't avoid. How confident are we that this is the final price?
So, great question. A lot of the times when you look at a project and what are the unforeseens, it's when you do your underground construction, when we're putting in sewer, we're putting in water. When we start actually excavating and starting to put in, water and sewer lines, and we don't know, we can't see what's under the ground, right? We can't see anything. And that's where a lot of our change orders will come from, is the unforeseeables. Again, I'm not going to make any promises. But staff is very confident that the bid received is, that they're not going to be change order after change order after change order, and I fully understand, your comment. I mean, that is a concern, but we feel really good about the bid.
Mr. Vice Mayor, Councilmember Naren, the other thing that we'll be doing that maybe not has been done fully in the past is very active management on site. So we'll have inspectors in there, on there, around there when any work's being done. So I think we'll do a better job of managing the project than maybe has been done in the past. But again, you can't promise, you do never know. I mean, Councilmember Karat's question about, do we know where all the water is? Great question. We think we do. We've moved all the lines already. They have, over the last 2 years, been working on that area. So we feel pretty confident, but you never know for sure. But I think this project will be managed differently than some projects in the past. And I believe that that our Public Works Manager will be able to come back to you straight-faced for a real override or a real increase if there's a real need because of some unforeseen project or complication.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hausman.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I'll make a motion. I move to award contract IFB number FY21-PW-07 for the reconstruction of Mingus Avenue from 8th Street to Main Street to Pavco Company Incorporated in the amount of $2,696,638.43.
Second?
Did I misstate it?
I think you said 96,000. Yeah.
That's what I heard also.
Okay, oh. $2,690,638.43. Is that correct?
Second.
Okay. And do I have a second?
Yes. Sorry, second.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor made the motion and Councilmember Weldon seconded it. Would you do a roll call count, please?
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Clurot.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Halls.
Yes?
Mayor Alinsky.
Yes.
And motion carried.
Okay. All right. And I guess that takes care of everything but the claims and adjustments.
I move to pay the claims and adjustments.
Second?
Okay. Councilmember Henry made the motion and Councilmember Naren seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.